awesome.
Yeah.
That's not the real life.
It's actually reallife.arkansas.gov. But this is a form that Taylor and Heather came up with to work with their kids at Rogers with, which is really cool because I was using the website without any form and just going from memory. So this is on the drive, and you actually fill this out while you go through the website, and it will make more sense once you actually look at the website. I always choose the non-flash, just because I don't make P. Ridge's computers work any harder than they have to. Occupation Direct, if you click on that, you can just pick a random job. And I picked an actuary because one of my kids was like, I have no idea what that is, and I was like, I don't either. So it will give an annual salary for Arkansas, the average tax that they pay for Arkansas, and what their monthly income would look like. And if you click,
So what is an actuary?
let's go.
To help insurance companies decide how much to pay out.
A professional, business professional who deals with financial impact of risk.
Oh, like on something about Polly?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Is that the name of it? No.
You think it's something about marrying with him in it too?
Yes.
Oh gosh, yeah. That's a funny movie.
All about, wait.
All about Polly. No.
And so,
Along came Polly.
yeah, with the ferret.
Yeah.
So I picked aerospace engineer. They make quite a bit of money, but if you just pick a city, wait, I'm doing this backwards.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to the top right, oh, there you go.
Okay. On number 2, feature salary, you can actually tap into salary and it will bring up all the jobs in Arkansas that fall under that salary.
Hey, you want?
I can show you all that real quick too. So I'm just gonna type in 50 grand, which that's usually what my kids would spout off as. It sounds like a ton of money until you have children. And I always put I don't know, just so that it pulls everything, because most of what my kids were focusing on was salary. And I also put I don't know in the occupation, just to see what would pull up. And whenever it pulled up this much, my students were like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, yeah, we gotta narrow it down. So from there, I would go to get a real life check. This is where you start filling out this form. And I had them pick the city, most of them picked Rogers. And I had them do this for what they would want to do while they're in college, and also what they would want life to look like after college. So after college, I'd be like, you want to live in a house, I'm assuming. You
Never
want-
assume.
Right.
Sorry, Laura.
Electricity, cable, internet. You don't need a landline. Nobody needs a landline. And then I would have them do whatever they prefer to do. Some of my students were the only ones at home who cooked dinner, so they would cook dinner all the time. That wasn't a big deal. A lot of them would go to the Sonic in P. Ridge after high school, or after school at out and go get something. So I'd be like, okay, you want to have money to do that as well. And then I would give them a little extra just to be on the safe side. And then most of them wanted the luxury auto, but I put the average auto, which I still thought was really high for a car payment. And then the health insurance plans, I would try to explain this to them as simple as possible, but it can get pretty confusing on which one you should choose. I think it has to do with like how high your deductible is and stuff like that. So I would have them do these just to be safe. And you need to go to the dentist. And then this was based on, I would have them list out how many times they went to the movies each month, how many times they wanted to go out to eat, you know, things like that, how many video games they bought, that kind of stuff. Most of them picked about $100. And then on personal upkeep, this included your gym membership, you know, how expensive your haircuts are, that kind of stuff. So I would usually put about 75, that way they have wiggle room. This was if you like to buy the newest Kindle that's come out, if you like to take a weekend trip, that kind of stuff. It was just extra money for them, just to have. So I would click that. And then I was very biased and I told them that they should be putting 10% in their savings account. So that's kind of high, I know for some people, but when your washing machine breaks, you're gonna be happy it's there. So for one person living the lifestyle that they would probably want to live by themselves, 43 grand a year is pretty good. That's by yourself, no spouse, no children. So
No way.
do it.
There's no way.
Right, yeah. So, and then you can click find occupations that match that salary, and here I put, I don't know, and then it's pulled up all of these careers. So let's try a bachelor's, and I don't know what field. And it still pulls up a very large chunk of jobs. So let's pick, and I would just have the kids go with me through it and see which ones sounded interesting. And a lot of times they'd be like, there's so many of these jobs, I don't even know what they mean. And I was like, well, that's getting out of the whole teacher, lawyer, doctor thing. Like, there's so many jobs out there that you don't even know what they do, where they're at, what they do on a daily basis. So I would just have them look at it, and I'd just go through and explain each one as we went down, and they'd pick one that sounded interesting. So, let's take chiropractor. Usually make $80,000 in the Fayetteville, Springdale, Rogers area. This tab is good because it's projected job openings. So this kind of connects to the ONET information. And I tried to explain to kids, you want this number to be as high as possible, and you want it to be in the positives.
What does it say?
Annual job growth rate, because you want there to be jobs when you graduate. And this is interesting because this is the annual average job openings in our area. It said it only has 4 listed, and I know there's more chiropractors out there. I don't know what statistics they base that on. Retirement, graduation, not sure. But it is interesting. It has work conditions, how you become a chiropractor, and then the licensing, which is interesting. And it even has the State Board of Chiropractic Examination on it.
What did it say under training for chiropractor?
It must be licensed, 2 to 4 years of undergrad, 4-year chiropractic college courses, pass the board.
Oh, I thought, so you can just have a bachelor's and be,
But you have to do
go.
You have to go to chiropractor school,
4 years.
which is usually
Oh.
out of state.
See, I thought you had clicked on bachelor's.
A bachelor's and higher. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
and higher.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
okay,
sorry.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
'Cause I was like, whoa.
And so I would show the kids too, if they were like, well, I'm not really sure about college, but maybe, maybe NWAC would be okay. I do associates and post-secondary vocational. And that pulls up dental hygienists. Physical therapy assistant was a big one I ran into. You still make $45 a year as a physical therapy assistant. It just requires a bachelor's. The job growth rate is in the positives, but it's not super high. And then, you just go through it with the kids. And what I like about the form that Taylor and Heather came up with is, you've got questions like, did this surprise you? Did this change your mind? Things like that. What can you do now in high school that will help you get to one that you've liked and things like that. And I would, if you do use this form, be sure and change the Miss Scott part. Because I didn't change that. But beyond that, I used this more than any other website with the kids. It really seemed to help them understand that there are quite a few jobs out there in Arkansas. They just don't know what they are or where they're at.
Well, and working conversely too, sorry, Jason. Working conversely too, I had a lot of students wanting to be cosmetologists, and once they looked it up on here, they were like, I can't live the life I want by being a cosmetologist. Maybe I do need to pick something that fits my lifestyle better, so.
Yeah.
really good reality
And
check.
this, you based a lot of this on income. And there's so much, we learned from this and other things, that there's more to it than that.
Oh, there's a
So,
lot more to it than that. That was whenever I opened that conversation, most of them were like, well, I wanna make a lot of money. Well, of course you do, everyone wants to, everyone wants to live comfortably. So I would kind of try to get an idea of what field they might be thinking about, and then I would just say, okay, this is what you can do in that field in Arkansas at this salary. So I tried not to focus too much on income, but that's where their minds went, you know.
And I think it's because it's the easiest thing, since they don't know exactly what they want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Well, and they can see the lifestyle of what teachers drive and what they do in and out and what a doctor is going to do, things like that. It's just trying to get them out of that box of careers, so.
Yeah, and there's more to, in another, partner, marrying, whatever
Yeah.
you say, when they can change that.
It does, and I try to explain to them that even though a lot of nurses, they can make really good money, sometimes you're not working the shift you want to, sometimes you're in really high stress
yeah, going
environments
into
and you're the
values.
only nurse on that floor, you know, things like that, so I tried to give them that too.
There also is a thing on here where you can go and project what it would cost to be in a family with a kid.
Oh, yeah.
Go back. It's at the end, I think.
Is it, okay.
And there's a question on the worksheet that has them go through and do it.
Go back.
Go back to that end slide.
This one?
Yeah. Is there,
Having a family.
Yeah.
Square.
Oh, yeah.
and then you can like
Spouse
Say
will not work. Oh, yeah,
married.
okay.
with one child and it'll project like,
So let's say we're married and your spouse is planning to work and you plan on having 2 children and you both are gonna have an associate's degree. Oh yeah. So changes things a lot. So, whenever students didn't have a clue what they wanted to do, I didn't use the Focus 2 last year, but I think what I would do is I'd start out with the Focus 2 and the reset activities that we can do, get an idea of what job sector they would be interested in, and then go to this one and show them what that actually looks like, you know, in real life, so.
And I like all of the jobs it picks up.
Yeah.
It starts them thinking of things they never thought they could be or knew about.
Yeah, I mean, I had students, they're like, well, what does an accountant do? And I was like, well, there's lots of different types of accountants, you know, things like that, so. Any other questions?
Can you pull up the actual sheet again,
Yes.
just so we can see that? And this is actually the tool, I guess, that you would use when you sit down with the
Yeah.
student to kind of go through and they can fill out those answers to those questions as they go along, so.
Yeah, this walks straight through the website with you, and I wished I'd had this last year, because I just had the kids writing it down on
Mhm.
paper and then we talk about it, so this is great. A lot of good prompting questions with this.
Could a student do that as homework also and bring it back to you?
if we didn't get a chance to do it together in our meeting, I had them do it as homework and bring it back. Which homework is
Yeah.
Tricky.
tricky.
But with our incentives program, I think it did help. for
Yes.
that stuff.
And it was really interesting when they did bring it back to see what their reflection, like, questions were and when they were surprised or, it was good.
And I had a parent that I showed them this website, and they were so excited because they felt like they could help answer their kids' questions about careers and stuff where they couldn't before. So, I mean, I know they had a home computer, so that was cool, but, a lot of times the parents and the teachers, I had some teachers that were like, this is amazing, where did you find this, you know? So, it seems to be helpful, you know, beyond just the student, so. Anything else?
Nice work, thank you. So would it make sense to go now to the brag sheet handout and then do the sample resume and job interview? Guys, Heather, David? Yes. Makes sense.
Okay, so the brag sheet is basically a way to start building resumes with your high school students. A lot of times if you hand them a sample resume, they have no idea what it is. Most of them haven't even seen a resume. So this is just like basic building blocks, places for them to write. It's very visual aid for them. So name, make sure they put it how they want it on their resume. Phone number, make sure they include their area code. Address, that could be mailing address or where they live, preferably mailing address. Email address, make sure it's professional, which we talked about yesterday with our professional communication. Education. So this one I didn't think about before I put down, and I should have changed it a little bit, but a lot of my kids put their elementary schools, their middle schools. I said, you don't really have to put all that stuff, so just make sure to tell them that before they get started, because they'll be like, I don't remember when I graduated elementary school. It doesn't matter. They just need to put their high schools. And the reason that I gave,
Like highest level, like in parentheses, highest level, that might be good.
yeah. And I found that a lot of my students had transfer high schools, so making sure that they put both of those high schools on there is important. Any school clubs they were involved in, the years that they were in the club. You guys kind of know the stuff that needs to be on a resume. It just differs a little bit with high school students because they don't have a whole lot of job experience and a whole lot of volunteer experience. So sometimes they're like, I don't know what to put on there. So this just kind of walks them through. The organization that they did their community service, when they did it, where it was, and what they did. Work experience. This is the one that might not have a whole lot of stuff in it, and that's okay. Explaining to your students that you're gonna build this. Like this isn't you do it once and it's over kind of thing. You're gonna be building onto this continuously and adding on. So, but having that information in one spot and being able to add on to it instead of having to recreate it every single time is important. Any achievements that they've gotten. Before I forget, community service and school clubs. I had a lot of my students were religious and attended youth groups and churches and had a lot of volunteer experience in their church. So walking them through how to list that stuff out is really important as well. And a lot of students don't know the name of their church. So.
Yeah, and also even just brainstorming with them the different types of things that could be considered community service.
Exactly.
Because a lot of them are like, well, I just do this, but they didn't even know that it was something that they could use to market themselves.
Right, like there was one example that one of my students had like volunteered at a fair or something at their church and like helped kids throw balls at something. That counts. Maybe you get to put it on there.
And they might. Go ahead. I was just gonna say, you can kind of think that way, I think, with work experience as well. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a formal
Right.
job. Maybe they did do some job shadowing, or they, work with their dad every Saturday at his office, or,
Babysitting,
yeah.
mowing lawns.
yeah, so that doesn't have to necessarily be a
Yeah.
paid job.
That's a great point.
I was just gonna say with the religious, like, community service or whatever it is, sometimes an application will say, do not include that, so that might be something to kind of let them know, just
Right.
if an application says that.
Good point. Achievements and honors, awards, again, don't list that you got first place in the spelling bee. That's really, like in first grade. It's really not. What? I mean, I guess you could if you wanted to. But
Wait a minute, I have that on my resume now. That's not important?
The reason you don't, if you're trying to explain to someone you don't do that, is because if you put something that far back, it makes it look like you haven't done anything
Yes.
Mhm.
within the recent future or past.
Yeah, exactly. And then skills that might help them get a job. So a lot of my students were bilingual. Making sure that they put what languages they're bilingual in is really important because they would just put bilingual. Like, oh, you speak French and German? And they say, no, English and Spanish. So, if they're good with like graphic design software or any classes, I also had them list classes that they had taken. So if they wanted to be an engineer, putting any of those like programming classes that they had taken is also really important because if they're applying for a job shadowing or apprenticeship or anything like that, those classes are going to be, the employer's going to say, oh, well, they've got a little bit of experience in some of their classes. So, so does that make sense, the brag sheet? It's really just like their resume, just in blocks. Okay.
My kids were really excited about it because they got really overwhelmed looking at resume templates on Microsoft and stuff.
Yeah.
So I would have them fill that out first.
And this is something that they can take home and it's spelled out for them and bring it back in and then you build a resume with them so it's really good to
Mhm.
send home and then say, bring it back completed so we can build your
Yeah.
resume together, and I'll help you with the formatting stuff.
One of the, I like this a lot,
Yeah.
because I like the categories that you created to sort, then they have everything they need, and the category titles listed right out.
Right.
That's a very, they'll use that template probably in the rest of their careers, some version of that.
Can we move on to resume?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have two different resumes on here. The sample resume is the same thing as a sample resume with notes. The with notes just has notes on it.
Really?
Yeah, I know.
Crazy.
And it's not as pretty as some of the other documents, but if anybody wants to play with it, you totally can. So this just walks you through, it's a sample resume for a high school student, and just, as you guys know, resumes can be formatted in 1,000 gazillion different ways. Some stand out more than others. This to me is just a very basic, listed out, easy to read kind of thing. I think that's really important whenever you're working with your students, is making their resumes really easy to read. I would have my students format it how they thought it would look pretty, and then say, okay, now step back and pretend this isn't your resume. Can you read everything? If you needed to find what job you had, point to me where your job is. And sometimes they would be like, oh, I don't remember. So then it's not easy to read when we need to reformat something, right?
What about putting it on scented colored paper?
Like Elwood.
Elwood's,
Yes, it's scented.
And the objective, I think this is something that's kind of phasing out. I read a couple of articles on the objectives, and some resumes, people don't want you to put objectives anymore. It just kind of, I made my students do it just so that they would know how to make an objective if they
Kind of
needed
odd.
to.
I mean,
It's
Yeah.
I
totally
think
weird.
it's more like job specific, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Like it wouldn't necessarily be on your main sole resume, but if you're applying for a specific job, I think it's
Right.
Huh?
I would have
Yeah, only
people
reason.
turn in resumes for Hanks with objectives filled out, and they would literally put to obtain a position within the company of Hanks or something like that, and I'm like, oh my god. No.
So I think teaching the kids the
Yeah.
students how to write that objective is really
Yeah.
important, even if they don't use it now.
Right.
It's something that they'll know how to do in the future.
Yeah, they need to know at least what it is when
Right.
they encounter it.
And even it, I think it just helps them kind of formalize what their goal is,
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. This was really hard for some of my students. I set a limit and said if you have below this GPA, I probably wouldn't include it on your resume, because some of my students' GPAs were kind of shaky. So that's, I guess, up to you guys, whatever you think, your discretion. And then their expected graduation date. Volunteer experience, just the name of the place, where it is, the dates they did it, and what they did.
And this is a
Something-
real, like, not necessarily have to be on there, but expected graduation, you could put May 2015,
Yeah.
but, because can't some in December, I don't know, very few.
Well, I mean,
It
that
should be assumed that
it
it's
may make a
May.
difference if, like, or it's an academic job or something, if they start,
Oh, yeah.
just the timing on that, if they have to be graduated by a certain date, that may be important to know.
Okay. So work experience, you guys all know what a resume looks like, but there are just notes on each side. Something that didn't get put on the drive, which I'll send to you again, is I found a really great action verbs website. It's Boston College, if you guys wanna Google it, it pops right up. Boston College action verbs. And I think Caitlin will get it added on the drive once I send it to her, but it's categorized into, like helping action verbs or creative action verbs. So there's different categories. So what I did with my students when I would rebuild their resumes is I'd say, well, what category, like explain to me what you did. And they would tell me one thing, and I'd say, what category do you think you should look under to find your action verb? And so we would work together to help figure out which action verb they needed to do, and then I would help them build the sentence. And once they got the idea of like what kind of sentences they were building with that, then let them do one on their own. So kind of that I do, we do, you do mentality. The skills, again, bilingual, English and Spanish, make sure that we put that. I had them put goals, I don't have relevant classes on this one, but goals I thought was really important if they were applying for, I don't know, job shadowing or volunteer experience. showing the employer, whoever they're applying to, just what their goals are, or if they needed to give this to, some of my students are going into the tutoring program, they're gonna be elementary school tutors, so being able to say on their goal sheet, I plan to be a teacher one day. When they turn that in, oh, well, this person wants to be a teacher, so we should really consider her for this tutoring program. I think that it, and even like I have on here, joining the track team junior year, it just shows that they're making goals and they have plans and they're getting involved, even if they're not right now, they have plans to become involved next year.
And that ties right into the goals that we'll be making with them too.
Exactly, yeah. Are there any questions? A lot of this stuff, again, is gonna come from the brag sheet. So it's just gonna be formatting. Yeah, Jen.
Oh, I just have a thought. If you have a student who has, let's say, a bit of a lower GPA, I don't know where you said it, but I saw in there they had a job. Let's say they're working 20 hours a week, you know, maybe putting maintained a 2.8 GPA while, you know, working 20 hours a week. You know, however you want to format that to show that they are, maybe they don't have the highest GPA, but they can balance work and school and still passing classes.
And that's important to prep them before an interview too, to be able to verbalize and communicate that. Just really quick, a lot of my kids had trouble with not making it I sentences. They wanted to say like, I did blah, 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 blah. So just going back to those action words and a different way of formatting not complete sentences, which is strange when it's formal
You just
writing.
assume you say I before everything. I created the
Right.
I, you know,
Yeah, so it's just a way of like.
And that ties back into what I said yesterday about using those fancy words. Like you're not gonna say this like you would tell your friend what you do in your job. You're gonna have to structure it. And I always say fancy words because you say action verbs and those are out of your head. You gotta use some fancy words, gotta make that sentence sound fancy.
I would also have them fill out a brag sheet before they apply for a scholarship, because a lot of what they ask for a scholarship is similar to what will be on a resume. That helped them.
That's a great point. I only had sophomores and juniors last year, so I didn't have to do letters of recommendation, but that might be a good place to use that too, so that if they are asking a teacher, their teacher can say, okay, well, what do you do? They can give that to their teacher and then the teacher has to.
And I did write a few letters of recommendation, and I used a template that Sarah had sent me. But if there's another template anybody else liked or used.
Jason, is the thing that you created is for them writing a letter, right? Not for us to write a recommendation letter?
It is for the essay.
Essay for scholarship.
An academic resume for the scholarship. So
Okay.
a lot of this is gonna be overlap.
Yeah.
It's not, it's their essay or
Okay.
personal statement, whatever you call it.
Yeah, it may be beneficial then for us. I mean, I think, like you said, Sarah had an example, but
Yeah.
if we have some other examples to pull from, that'd be kind of cool.
There's a book that Wayne Hunter has at Harvard, and it's just a book of how to write recommendation letters, and it's like depending on the student's skills, so that might be something if anybody wants to buy it. Sure. Yeah.
I'm going backwards here a little bit. I noticed like on the skills where you said that you had kids that were bilingual. If you guys have students that say, oh, I'm bilingual, I know English and Spanish, find out how fluent they are. And they should be specific. Are they fluent in speaking, reading, or writing?
Oh, okay.
Because I know especially for the younger generation, they're like, oh yeah, I know both languages, but the way they communicate it isn't very professional or accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So just knowing the things they can do with those languages is really important.
And they could say like bilingual in English, Spanish, and then over there you say like, proficient in writing or proficient or like excellent in.
Isn't there a test you take to prove proficiency, like in office management? They want you to, if you take
I think there is one, and so like, for example, if they put that on a resume for an application, and then they aren't fluent, and they go into that, that's just gonna kick their butt.
Yeah. There's some tests that if you're applying for some kind of office job, they give you at the beginning to make sure you're proficient.
Just so that they know as well what they're going into, if they need to take one of those tests.
That's a great one. I didn't know that. Thank you.
Good job.
Hey, look, action verbs made out there.
Man, I tell you what, things happen fast around here.
They do.
Yeah, it's just like
You
boom.
guys are
Look at all these
just
updates,
great.
look at all these bolded things.
I should like Whitney, were you gonna do the job interview thing handout?
What?
I don't know who signed up for that. I think it got turned in late.
I thought someone else signed up for fair.
This job pull up the,
I think you were just talking about the role play stuff you did with Brittany, right? Did you send that to me, Whitney?
Yeah.
But I don't think it was.
Yes.
I like that.
do you,
I can talk about it.
thank you. Sorry to
I'm
come
not being
put you on the
resistant,
spot.
I'm just finding my sheets for that.
I also have a pin on my
Sorry.
school counseling board on
An oppositional young lady, Whitney, where's your father when you need him?
that explains the difference between like business casual and business formal and things like
Oh.
that. So, my school counseling board for interest.
That book that I bought in Boston has like a fashion show intervention thing.
Ooh.
We just had an idea.
Lauren, we should do it.
Okay. I think it's exciting. Do an intervention of what not to wear, and we all.
Well, let's do a video of it and we can show to
Yeah.
our kids.
Wouldn't that be
like,
fun?
Instead of just saying it.
Well, and I
And it
think
can be
you
kinda
guys
funny and.
could do, you could even, if you have the time, and not everybody might have the time to share it with kids, but you could do a very poorly done
Yes.
interview, and then this is how you do it,
That's
so
what I was
I like that idea, yeah.
And if we do it on YouTube, it could be something that you just send the link to kids, even if you don't have time to do it interview.
Yeah.
Should we create that Razor Coach
Probably
YouTube
out
channel?
there.
I was about to ask
I'm
you.
sure.
Should do that.
Is that easy to do?
Yeah, you just have to create the channel. I mean.
Does that have to be connected to an email?
Yeah.
You could use the Razor Coach Gmail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can just like rate our closets for really bad clothes and make combinations and then do a really bad interview and then have one person do a really good one. I'm excited about this.
I'm going to wear police officer.
It appears that I have a
Fashion police.
channel. See, my channel. I'm not gonna click on that. I don't know what it will pull up.
Did they? Oh, alright, the bell just went off, so class everyone we're gonna get started. A few things about this. This is just a sheet letting you know what you'd wished you'd known before you did an interview. So a lot of common mistakes happen, and this is just a sheet that tells you about that. Basically, let me see where it is. I can't hardly read this, so you'd have to print this out and give this to your students. A little break there. But 70% employers claiming they don't want their applicants to be fashionable or trendy. So don't show up in like your mini skirt and your high heel boots that are up to here. Even if it is trendy, you know, it's okay to wear your plain black slacks and a white collar shirt. They want you to know how you're going to do the job and how you qualify for the job rather than seeing that you're the most fashionable person. Maybe, let me see. And then a lot of the mistakes that happen are like you're not making eye contact with the interviewer, you're not smiling, you're not looking at them, you're not engaged, you might be looking at the ceiling when you're answering. So just certain things like that. I don't know if I need to go more in depth in this. It's just top 10 mistakes, and I know this is terrible, but I can't read this right now, so I'll have to zoom in. Maybe
I sat on an interview committee one time, and a woman walked in with a big gulp and set it down. And she was done. We was done. I mean, we interviewed her, but it was just like, after it was over. And there was more than just that.
Well, it's sweating everywhere, got water rings on the table.
But there was a lot, like, yeah, I mean, there was more to her, there were shortcomings other places, but that's just not the impression you want to think.
Yeah, the first thing.
Neither is saying, oops, I need to turn off my cell phone. That's not good. Don't send it up there.
Yes. That's a big mistake. So the top 10 mistakes. Number 10 is over-explaining why you lost your last job.
Oh gosh.
Number 9, conveying that you're not over it. So you might be upset, you might be tearful, you might be a little bit agitated, like my last boss was so stupid.
Number 8, you're lacking humor, warmth, or personality, so you might just answer the question like, yeah, I lost my last job. Not showing enough interest or enthusiasm in the job. That's important. If you're just there, but you're not, if you're physically there, but you're not actually paying attention to what they're asking you, that's a qualifier for you not getting the job. Or inadequate research about the potential employer. So if you get in there and you ask them what the job is about, they're not going to hire you. Concentrating too much on what you want. So if you're asking the employer about how much you're going to be making or when time off is, that's not showing that you want to do or show your skills in that job. Trying to
Can I
be,
add something to that?
sure.
I think you're always going to get this is what I used to tell people, you're always going to get the question, why do you want this job or why should we hire you? I think that answer, a really effective way to answer that is say something good about the company first,
Yeah.
and then tying it into how you fit in with that part. So talking about them first and then yourself, because I think naturally we want to talk about ours. Well, I think that's a pretty good.
Along the same lines, when they ask questions in terms of like, what are some things you're good at, and then what are things that you're not good at, instead of just listing those things that you're not good at, say them in a way that where you've overcome that. I'm not really good with my time management, but I was able to manage these 3 different programs, things like that. So you can say things negatively about yourself, but still form it to where it's positive.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that ties into what you were saying, trying to be all things to all people.
Exactly.
So you can't be everything great, like, oh yeah, I did this great. So if you're really bad at time management, you can't tell the employer, yeah, I keep a tight schedule, I write in my planner, but then you don't actually write in your planner. Winging the interview, just going in on the fly, what I'm doing today, winging it. And then number 2.
Josh is really good at that.
Set yourself apart from other candidates. I think, is his name Phil? Am I getting that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Jones?
He said, setting yourself apart. The difference might be your GPA. One student, you might have 2 good candidates, and one student might have like a higher GPA, or you might need to show yourself as being really creative and telling how you were creative in this one instance, and that might set you apart from the other candidate. Failing to ask for the job. That is the number 1 mistake.
Wait.
I think even if you just convey, like, if you're not interested in the job, that's
Oh,
failing
like
to
just
ask
saying
for it.
I'm really interested
Yes.
in taking on this position and just.
Oh,
Okay.
just verbalizing it.
Yeah.
So now, can I have that?
Yeah.
Am I hired?
Are we good?
Can I have
Sugar on top. That is a subtlety that you need to convey to your students, maybe practicing that, saying, well, it's not blatantly saying, okay, see you next Monday, ready to go, I'm so glad that you're doing the job.
Give me my I-9.
Yeah.
Should I get my ass like now or later?
Something else she did is the first question, she talked 20 minutes. On the first question.
What?
We just let her go. That's what I mean, there was from the
Can you
very
not
beginning.
read body language and know it's time to go home?
Right?
20 minutes, the whole interview should have been 20 minutes.
Well, we scheduled for an hour.
Like, ain't nobody got time for that. Just sit there all day and listen to something.
Sweetheart.
It was,
Does anybody have an experience where they made any of those mistakes in an interview? Like if you went to apply for a part-time job?
When I interviewed people for Hanks, I saw it day in and day out. So I'm not sure of an example where I did it, but I saw it all the time.
Okay, yes.
I interview people for the store for mods, so it's a lot of high school girls, and they get really, really annoyed when they don't have any questions to ask me at the end, and that they haven't prepared, and they can't tell me why they really want to work at our boutique versus Others, like, this is probably the first time they've ever been in here. type of thing.
Yeah, that is good.
Go ahead.
Whenever I interviewed to go to grad school,
This is true.
this is a true story. They asked why I wanted to come to Arkansas, and the first thing, there are multiple reasons, but the first reason I told them is that my boyfriend lived here.
You did not. You did not.
Oh, wow.
And you
Were you in mine?
You came in late.
Yeah, I didn't hear that
So
part.
you missed that one.
You know, right after you said it, you were
Dr.
like,
Luke's gave me
I
such
tried to
better
recover and I was like,
like,
he's the one that originally got me interested. That's how I first found out about Arkansas. But once I got here, I really fell in love with it.
Oh my god.
And she's here.
I don't think that's
Never gonna
necessarily like totally terrible answer, because it made me think, like, remind your students they need to be honest in their interviews.
Yeah,
Honest.
Genuine.
Come across naturally.
well, my boyfriend goes to school here.
Dr. Luce gave me some kind of crap in mind. I didn't think I was gonna get it.
I think a lot of interviews are going to give examples, like give me an example when you were responsible, or when you overcame something that was
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
that's a good one.
Being on your brag sheet, take those and help them articulate those bullet points into more answer would be a pretty easy way to transition to that. But also, don't use the same example for everyone. That kills me in an interview. So, the same, well, when I was in Irish folk, that's a real interview setup.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, kind of like Lauren, I had to interview, I was the assistant manager at Aldo, and I asked a girl one time why she wanted to work here, and she was like, well, don't you get 50% off all shoes? And I was like, yes, and that's an awesome perk, but it's like not the whole reason.
You're gonna owe us money at the end of your
Yeah.
paycheck for all the shoes you buy, if that's your
She
goal.
was like, yeah, okay, well,
Okay.
Mental.
Okay.
No, you're
down the street.
I was gonna say, we might wrap this up. Those are all really
Yeah.
good examples. We have one more that I'd like to hear about.
I think one good thing too is to kind of go over with the students about what not to do while they're waiting for the interview. For example, this last year I worked in an elementary school, so I was always at the front office. And there was this person that went to drop off a resume to be a teacher there. And so they're like, oh, our principal will be right back, you know, just, you can have a seat and wait. And she's there on her like, crap, doing who knows what, and I'm just there like, okay. And she gets a call, yeah, and she's talking about what a horrible day she's had and all this and that, and I'm like, you're just seeming really pessimistic right now.
Yeah.
No one's gonna hire you, and she didn't get hired because the principal overheard everything she was saying.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
So just, you know, don't sit there and
Because
text or
she
be on
had
the
to wait a
phone.
few minutes or whatever, like.
That's a great point. The
And
interview starts when you walk in that door. You
Yeah.
Yes.
haven't met anybody except for the receptionist, whoever's there. I mean, there might not be anybody in the lobby, but there might be somebody watching.
And word gets around.
Don't bring your
So,
Also,
Yes.
you
don't
never
forget
know
children.
who the receptionist is. When I walked in to interview for my teaching job at Pine Bluff School District, the superintendent was pretending to be the receptionist.
That is devious.
And had us go and like sit in the waiting area and kind of just like watch us for like 10 minutes.
Big Bro- or what's that show? Undercover Boss.
Yeah.
So you never know. You never know.
yeah, there's always people checking up on you. so
sketch.
Yeah.
just beware.
That is really.
And I think it's important to note your mistakes. If you make a mistake, or if even if it's a small one in the interview, there are certain ways you can backtrack and make it okay.
Here's an example,
Yes,
right?
that's a great example. I will give one example. In my interview for graduate school, Dr. Higgins can attest to this. I told Dr. Greenleaf, you don't know me, but I know you.
That's creepy.
Let me rephrase that. I'm a little bit nervous.
Flattered.
Yeah. What I mean is, I've been reading up on some of your research involving positive psychology, and so I'm really interested in working alongside you with something like that. And he's like,
Best thing you
okay.
could say in acting.
You're in.
Kidding?
You're admitted.
You know me? Yeah.
Work the situation. I think all the interviewers know that there is a little bit of nervousness. So, and then here are some interview questions to think about. It has a list of questions asked by the employer and then questions that are commonly asked by the applicants. The number one question to me that throws interviewers off, or interviewees off, is tell me about yourself. You say that and honestly, you get dumbfounded, you're struck, you're looking at the ceiling thinking like, I don't know what to
That's
say.
the one you have ready. When you walk
That's
in.
the one you
And-
have ready.
It's honestly, it is probably one of the toughest ones because it's right there at the beginning. It's like, oh, what do I say now? But you know, it's the easiest one. You know who you are. I mean, you know yourself, so it should be. I don't know. That's just the way I try to think about that. Is
Yes, and they don't want to know about your dog, they don't want to know about your boyfriend, they want to know how you can do what you can do or your skills that pertain to their job. So it's not like, oh, I have a little sister and we share rent and we have this dog that we have joint custody with. You know, that's not it. Yeah, I have a cactus and he has a little brother now, so nobody cares.
Interesting.
So anyway, those are silly things, and they don't really, it's not that they don't care about you as an individual, but they want to know how you can do the job that they're interviewing for. So even if you get thrown off for a minute, take a moment, think about it. You might even say something like, I think it's important to be self-aware, so that's a really great question. Boom, tell them your answer. And then it just goes on and on and on. And so then the ending question, oh, it doesn't have it on here, is usually, do you have any questions for us? And to me, it's okay if you bring a list of questions, or like 2 or 3, you have them written down. They don't expect you to have those memorized.
In fact, I think, bringing something
It
out
shows
with
you're
questions,
prepared.
yes, shows
Yeah.
you prepared and really thought about it.
I had a list of like 12 questions for my grad school.
Yeah.
within that though, I mean, I think it's also important to try to, really listen and pay attention to the interview and
Yeah.
think of questions that have come up then and there. As
You know,
well.
a couple good ones is like, who would be my supervisor? Is this more independently structured, or would I have specific tasks on a daily basis?
Mhm.
That kind of stuff. They like to hear that kind of stuff.
What kind of training is there at the beginning?
Yeah.
How is it structured training?
And all of these handouts you can give your students, or you can just use them on your own and then tell your students about them. This is a little pie chart dividing up what the job qualifications and the interview is based on. So 40% of it is your attitude. Looking at your body posture, if you've got your arms crossed and you're looking at the ceiling, you're not going to be seen as being interested in this. Communication skills, it's okay if you make a slip in your phrasing of like saying, you don't know me, but I know you, backtrack. You're trying to say. And then your appearance, like earlier we said, it's important to not be seen as trendy. Like you can wear something like, I don't know, you might have a brand name white collared shirt, but that doesn't matter. It's just showing that you can present yourself in a professional manner and carry high esteem about yourself, not just like showing up in cut-off jeans, cargo shirt, or cargo shorts. And then 10% is other. Just, it might be out in the lobby if you're on your phone and shouting at your Candy Crush Saga, I hate you, whatever.
And also, like, keep in mind, like, when to arrive for an interview. Like, obviously be punctual and be a little early, but don't be, like, too early, because
Yeah.
if you're sitting there nervous, fidgeting for 15 minutes, like, that doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So, what did they say, like, between 10 and 5 minutes, or?
Yeah, don't allow yourself enough time. We interviewed a person one time,
Know where you're
As a
going.
secretary position, who came in on time, but it was right on time, and he was covered in sweat. I
Yeah.
think there was like some drool and snot hanging out his mouth, and he was running real hard. And the whole time we interviewed, he was just breathing heavy and couldn't get his words out. So
I just did it on that one.
I felt bad for him, but at the same time, I was like, "Look, bud, sorry, you're not cut out for this.
Make sure you have enough gas on the way to the interview.
We're gonna need you to get here not sweaty."
Extra copies of your resume.
Yes, extra copies of your resume.
And I guess something we might have to explain to students is you can do all of these things and still not get the job. So there are
Yes.
factors outside of your
Yeah.
control. of
It
the
might
other
be
candidate.
a personal fit. The employer might just be like, I really don't like the way this person talks. mean, it could, I
Or
mean,
it
it
could
shouldn't be, but it could be.
It could be simple as funding didn't go through for an extra position.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's just
It
not.
could be nothing to do with me.
Yeah, it could be nothing to do with you, it could
It could
be.
be there's an inside
It could be
candidate,
everything.
but they have to open it up.
Yeah. This is a little form that you can do if you do an interview, a mock interview with your students. It's got a little checklist, or a little scale, Likert scale, sorry, of how well they did. And so then that way you can give the feedback to your students and say, okay, this is where you need some improvement, this is where you did a really good job. And that's really handy. So you can use those questions that I just previously showed you. And then, oh, we do have a sample thank you letter. I don't know if I need to go in depth on that. Basically professional communication, have a salutation, dear whoever, if you don't know who it is.
Whom it may concern.
Yes, to whom it may concern. And just basically saying thank you and then making it personalized, saying something that they'll remember you by, and then reiterating what you like about the job.
Or you could put your selection committee.
Yes, dear selection.
Oh,
And then a closing, sincerely, your name. Make it your professional name, not like
But it's probably gonna be an
With
email,
Roy.
right? So you're not gonna have all that, the addresses on, I mean, no, does anybody do that anymore? Like send thank you letters for an interview in the mail usually?
Handwritten thank you notes, but
Yeah,
I've never sent a
handwritten.
letter like
I never sent, yeah.
Whenever I worked,
I've done both before, but
I've done both.
For like an interview?
I mean, these days, a lot of times you can send an email, thank you.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can send an email, you can talk to your students, but still,
Sometimes I would just send it.
But I mean, the format of that would need to be fairly the same whether email or not.
Yes.
Maybe cut out the address stuff, but I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, the format's the same, I was just wondering if that was something I should include that people.
yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten handwritten thank you notes or reviews.
This is
Handwritten
a
letters
mock interview
are all
activity, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
they do.
I guess with the thank you notes,
If you can read
if they're
them.
gonna send it very quickly, you'll wanna send an email so they'll get it immediately.
Yeah.
Yes.
Think about it.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point too. I think my understanding is it's okay to ask what the timeline for decision making is, so they kind of have an idea of when they're gonna hear back.
And this is something to talk to them about, handshaking, like a firm handshake, not like, I don't know, like a
So
lip
is
handshake.
and eye contact.
Eye contact, yeah. No, you know what I'm talking about, when people like hand and it's just, I don't know, it's not like, you don't have to break their hand, but you know.
Practice it with.
My dad
I
said that's
mean,
very.
Caitlin, could you come up here?
That's what I was thinking, like each meeting,
I will
you
model
have to
this very
practice
well.
like.
Yeah.
It's important to see the professionalism, you're facing them, you're not creepy or weird though. But you're not looking up at the ceiling, so you have a strong firm handshake. Hello, my name is Whitney Farrar, letting them know who you are, and don't hold it for too long. I know, I was doing that, but don't hold it too long, letting them know who you are, and you might even extend, and you are,
I am Mrs. Morris.
yeah. So that way you're not calling them, hey you, during the whole interview, or repeat that question, and they're not calling you the wrong name.
And repeat the name after you hear it, because if you're like me, I remember faces and not names, and that's something I've always had to work on.
So that is important because if you don't give them your name, they could be mispronouncing it if they have a form with like your resume. You know, you might be, I can't think of a good name,
I
but
got called Laura a lot.
Cigar, more
Yeah.
cigars.
Yeah.
Rob Blair, it's because they're always like, Rob Liar, Rob Liar, like, yeah, no.
I get called Laura a lot, and I'm like, there's an N. You know?
Sometimes I go as John or Josiah.
like Steven or Stefan or Stefan, you know, it might be one of those. If you just. Okay, so this is a mock interview activity. You could do it with 3 students, or you could kind of go through, or 2 students and then yourself, and you be the interviewer, and then one student be a bad interviewee, and then the other be a good interviewee, and then go have the students give feedback to each other, like, okay, this is what you did wrong, this is what you did right, so that way they can understand what's important.
And this is where if we have those examples, you guys could also refer to examples on YouTube.
Mhm.
You know,
You guys-
something else,
I just sent out a link to our YouTube channel, by the way.
You could ask this before you
creative.
go in for the interview, but
It was really
the
easy.
student should be ready whether it's gonna be a one-on-one or a group. Because it's
Yes.
unsettling to
It
walk
could
in
be
and
a
realize
panel.
there's 7 people.
Yeah.
It could be a
Yes.
panel, like, there could be one person interviewing several several applicants. There's different ways. So it might be good to practice you interviewing both candidates, and then one of the students comes in as another member of the panel interviewing just the one student. Let's see what else we have. And it has a script, so you won't be left out on your own. Sometimes they'll ask you if you write your resume, but it's good to have an extra copy or two on hand. So see that it goes into the good candidate and the bad candidate.
Oh, so that's already written out for the interview. Oh, that's cool.
And then critiquing it, so you might say like, the bad candidate was not dressed professionally, had a halter top on, whatever. Tattoos were exposed, had piercings, hair was all in their face, and you couldn't even see their faces. And then it has some tips for a successful job interview. And then, do we have the video on here?
It's in the symbol.
Okay. I don't,
Maybe not too.
well, I'm not on.
Maybe
Just
not
goes
too.
to- trying to- Oh. This is not mine. I don't know my password. I'm sorry. It's good to remember your password.
There's an app called Evernote that.
I know I have that, but I can't remember my password for it.
Oh, that's funny.
But I have all my passwords in a note in Evernote, so. Yeah.
No, if I ever lost
Okay.
that, I'd be.
Yeah, I see it.
I know, if somebody ever got my phone, I'd
Yeah,
be
because it's
so-
like my electric.
Oh, you're not supposed to do that, store anything on your phone.
There are apps where you can lock, like,
Yeah.
your passwords.
Mine's just on people's.
There's like credit card numbers and
Oh,
stuff.
no, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not telling y'all.
I can find it. I can find it in the email.
I think I intended to
It's
put
okay.
it on there.
I'll find it. I'm gonna log to that. Do you want me to show you the video? Or,
What video is it?
What is it?
it's just of a mock interview.
We can watch it on our, if it's on
Okay.
Zoom, I feel like we can watch it.
It has a good candidate and a bad candidate, so you
Okay.
can show it to your students or whatever.
Yeah, we can
Find
do
it.
that.
I'll do
Oh,
it.
yeah, it'd be good to show the students.
This is such